Let's move on to the Washington Commanders. This will be the first year of Commanders football in the NFL with their quarterback, Carson Wentz, leading the way. Aaron, this team has a lot of this is a team heading in a completely new direction. Whether that direction is up or down, it is to be determined, but Carson Wentz is going to be leading the way for this team. Who has to step up the most in training camp and in the season for the Washington Commanders?
I just got heartburn so bad when you mentioned Carson Wentz's name.
I mentioned it a lot too.
Yeah, that almost made me ill. I had really good Mexican food for dinner, and it almost came back up because Carson Wentz's name was mentioned. And it's going to be mentioned a lot more because when you talk about step up, it's Carson Wentz. And I know these are the easy answers when I'm talking quarterbacks and we talk about who needs to take the next step. But many of these teams are teams we talked about as you look at their rosters and you're like, man, they have a good roster. Washington's no different. We can pick apart Washington's roster and maybe say it's not the best in the league. But when you really look from top to bottom, from number 1 to number 53 or 45 on an active day, they have a pretty good lineup. The wide receiver position is loaded with McLaurin and Dotson and Curtis Samuel. Running backs, they got them everywhere. Gibson and Brian Robinson and McKissick. Defense, they got one of the best defensive lines in football. Maybe some of the back end of that secondary can use some work, but they go get a Kendall Fuller's there. William Jackson, who was one of the better defenders on Cincinnati a few years ago. They're loaded pretty much throughout their lineup with talented guys. The one question mark has been the quarterback. It's all about Carson Wentz. Can Carson Wentz stop being the turd that he is and making excuses, turning the football over in inopportune times, and be the Carson Wentz that he was when he was, 11-3 or whatever it was, 17 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, MVP favorite before the injury, and get back to that form? I've told you I don't believe in him. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it changes in Washington, but that is what they need. They need that guy. They need Carson Wentz to prove me wrong. If they get Carson Wentz from the year he was supposed to be the MVP, the proving the Aaron wrong MVP Carson Wentz, this team will be right there in the NFC East, have a chance to win the division, and be fighting in the playoffs for a deep playoff run.
Do you think that this is the best coaching staff Carson Wentz has had in his career so far? Or no? So no. I know.
Doug Peterson won a championship. Frank Wright has been lauded as one of the better coaches in football.
Okay.
Ron Rivera. Don't get me wrong. I love Ron Rivera. He's been to a Super Bowl. But no, Doug Peterson has a Super Bowl ring, man, with a team that shouldn't have won a Super Bowl.
Nick Foles, man.
Foles. No.
Okay.
And to be even more fair, Ron Rivera is not a quarterback guy. Doug Peterson was a quarterback guy. Like, Doug Peterson is like the quarterback developed. That's why the Jaguars team goes out and gets him to develop a Trevor Lawrence. That's why he came from, Kansas City, where those quarterbacks were from. Like, Ron Rivera is great, but he's more of a defensive mind, known as a defensive guy. This is about Carson Wentz and himself.
I'm just looking to find things, and maybe Commanders fans in the comments can let me know about this. I'm looking to find things that tell me that this is going to be different for Carson Wentz. Like what maybe Ron Rivera being the smart head coach that he is, not saying that he's been better than Frank Reich. You clearly have said that, and Doug Peterson, but Ron Rivera being the smart coach that he is, maybe he kind of pulls it back for Carson Wentz and doesn't allow him to make those same mistakes that we've seen him in the past. Maybe that's why they drafted Brian Robinson. Maybe they're going all in on this rushing attack.
Vinny, they had Jonathan Taylor, who ran the ball 17,476,000 times last year. And he's still throwing the ball over his head. Can't beat the Jacksonville Jaguars in week 17 to clinch a playoff berth because of Carson Wentz. I'll say it again. The Carson Wentz issue is Carson Wentz and himself. He needs to stop being sensitive. He needs to stop letting people get in his mind. He needs to be a better leader. He needs to play better, and he needs to stop making excuses for when he makes mistakes. He needs to own them, take control of the locker room, and be a leader. I don't know if it's in him because it's been the same story his entire career.
If they don't make the playoffs this year, is this Carson Wentz's last year?
As a starting last year should have been last year. But yes, listen, if Washington Commanders don't. I don't even want to say make the playoffs. It's hard to make the playoffs in the NFL.
It is. Yes.
But if they go 7-9, 6, or what is it now? 7-10, 6-11. Why in God's green earth would the Washington Commanders bring him back next year? Why would they not go out and look for a franchise quarterback? Again, looking at the roster, you have everything in place. Everything. Yeah. I mean, you can point, and again, you can nitpick it, but they're not bad anywhere. They're not bad on any side of the ball.
Except at the quarterback position.
Except at the quarterback position, which is obviously the most important, but he has to win games for them. Those games that are tight and they end up losing, those are the games he has to turn into wins. Otherwise, he's just like Taylor Heineke. He's just like the guy before him.
We've talked about, and this will be the last Commanders question here. We've talked about some coaches in the NFL having an easier time switching the quarterback up. Do you think that we may see a Sam Howell or maybe even a Taylor Heineke during the season if Carson Wentz does underperform?
There's no if. We will see Taylor Heineke this year.
Okay.
By either by benching because he's playing bad or injury. Taylor Heineke will start games this year.
So the investment doesn't matter in Carson because they traded some good draft capital, decent draft. Okay. All right.
They didn't give up anything for Carson Wentz.
I'm reaching here. The
only thing they did is they brought in a quarterback that has quote unquote upside because we've seen him have a really good season.
Yeah.
So they call that upside. And that's what they traded for. They're hoping they can get that form back again. But let's be honest, man. There's no investment in this player to say, you know what, we're playing like crap. He's playing like crap. We can't bench him. Oh, you can. You've watched Taylor Heineke at least be competitive in a playoff game against Tom Brady. So I know he wasn't great last year, but you know what you're getting with Taylor Heineke. The unknown of Carson Wentz and the Washington Commanders is probably going to drive them crazy if he starts to play bad.
Yeah, he was serviceable. Heineke was serviceable.
Yeah.
And that may be what all they need to get at least to the playoffs. But Commanders fans, let us know in the comments what you guys think about Carson Wentz and tell us why you think this may be different for Wentz and the Commanders this season.